Hello everyone and welcome to Cookies Enabled. I am Will, your host, and today we're going to be getting to know your computer and how all the innards work, as well as all your input and output devices and all the little things that we plug into the computer. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff in this episode. If you guys have any extra questions or whatnot, definitely leave them in the comments below and we will definitely do a follow-up video, but I'm excited and let's learn something new today. Okay, so here is an original motherboard. This is the first one I ever bought and I ever started working on, and I have already removed the heatsink over the CPU down here, and this is the central brain of the computer, and then this is your north bridge. This would help connect the expansion slots to the brain, and then you have your back panel here, which is again where all your cards would also be facing this way. So this is your graphic card slot, and then your expansion card slots are here. And this one does not have any added. It does give you this funky black port here, which would allow you to connect this to a whole nother motherboard identical to this one and kind of seamlessly work multiple boards together. We're not going to talk about that though. This is the safety pin that locks in this old Athlon CPU, and I'm going to use this just by pushing down and kind of pulling up on it, and that'll pop the CPU out of the joint here. Now I can remove the CPU very carefully. I already did this once. And this was the first CPU I ever bought. I probably put this in my computer back in like 2000 and maybe 2000. It might have been 1999. I'm not exactly sure. But on the back here you can see all of the pins that connect it to the motherboard. They are gold-plated pins. There's a lot of them. The camera's having a hard time focusing on them for good reason. Now I'll show you some images of what these processors look like on the inside, because as you can tell, it's just a tiny little piece of plastic. It doesn't look like there's really anything going on, but really there is layer upon layer of wire, and it looks like a whole brain going on in there, which all lead to this one key processor. And all CPUs are still built like this, and they actually still kind of look like this, but now they'll have this key the key brain, and then they'll have maybe 2 or 3 other little boxes, and then all these little tiny memory cores are on there as well still. So they just look a little different. They're arranged a little differently, but they all work pretty much exactly the same way, including back here on my Xbox One and Xbox 360 and PlayStation. They all have a CPU or some kind of functioning CPU as well. The only other thing I want to mention is that you never want to touch the pins on the bottom. You never want to touch these guys with your bare hands, and you never want to you always want to make sure that you get your diamond corner pin lined up properly with your motherboard before you drop that CPU in place and lock it in place, because if you lock it in place and that is not lined up right, you damage the CPU permanently and potentially damage the motherboard irreparably. So you'd have to replace both, and most warranties don't cover those, so be very careful. Here is a decent Creative Sound Blaster card. Now this one would go in the far white slots of your motherboard, which I'll bring back up here in a minute. But the reason why you can tell this is a sound card is it has the 4 different colors, technically 5 because black is on here as well. These all stand for different things. You have your different inputs, your microphone, your output, and you have a digital out on this one, which ironically is still using an analog plug, so that's a little funny. And the reason why I don't use this anymore is it doesn't use fiber optic cabling for headphones, and that is exactly what I still have a Creative sound card, and it looks really similar to this one. This one actually worked better than the one I currently use. The one I currently use, if you switch the inputs in and out too much, it just completely crashes the computer for some reason. I don't know why. Now I have also have RAM's slots on here. This one has 3, and so this one is your short-term memory, and normally you'd have 4 or more slots. On most computers, or at least 2, and that would, especially for laptops, you don't normally see more than 2. And most laptops have everything soldered to the board, so you can't just pop it off like I'm doing over here, put it back together. I can't just throw in a graphic card like this guy, be like, oh, it's gonna work. It doesn't work that way. And even still, you have to make sure that your expansion slots match what your motherboard can handle, and that it's the right speed, it's the right software for your hardware. And I know that sounds like a lot to take in, but there is a Radeon graphic card right back there, and that one specifically works really well. And still, again, everything I'm showing you still works. It's just extremely outdated, which is one reason why I'm not using it anymore. Okay, so we're going to talk about my current computer build and really why that's significant to today. So 8 years ago when I set this computer up and I started designing it and realizing what I needed to have in this computer for it to last as long as it did without me needing to upgrade was going to cost a lot of money. So I think I remembered investing around $1,200 into this computer originally to get it going. And I want to say I had to cut a lot of corners just to get it up and running, and you'll see why as I point things out. So I'm sorry, it's a little dark in my case. I've had a few lights kind of go out on me, unfortunately, and it has not been dusted. So I'm very sorry about this. Now my camera does have a light on it, so it should help you see what's going on in the case as I move the camera around. But I wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up before I jump into the computer case here. Now it is in an old Alienware case from the 1990s, right before Alienware was bought out by Dell. And they were kind of going under, but Alienware was my dream company to work for back in the 90s because they customized every computer by hand. Literally, you would go to their website, choose every component inside the computer, and then someone on their end would hand build and put your computer together and then ship it off to you in working condition. How cool is that? And then everything was warranted, I think, for like 3 to 5 years or something to work completely perfectly, and they'd send someone out if otherwise. So it was really better than what any company was offering at the time, and Dell eventually kind of pulled way back on that. They still custom build computers, but nothing like they did in the past. But that is the original case, and I will probably continue to use that case until I get something different. But this one is really, I love this case. So much room and a really good airflow. It's missing a few things, as you'll see, but it still works great. Okay, so here is the computer case, and this is the side panel. It allows you to see just exactly what's going on inside there with the graphic card, the SATA cables, the CPU fan, and the power supply at the top there, and easy access to the back panel to see all my plugs and whatnot there for the graphic card, my fiber optic cable. I got my switcher on my phone, Triton headphones, obviously, and my external hard drive on the top there. Here is the front. This has a nice panel cover, which helps conceal the CD drives and whatnot. So you pull this open, and here you will find the expansion cards that I added. This one allows you up to 4, and I've only used as many as 3 at one time. I do update my stickers as well, and these are current. It is an FX processor, technically speaking, and everything is powered by ASUS. I have G-Skill, memory in here, but as you can tell, there's the power supply or the power button and the reset button. And yes, it does have front panel USB, which is really dirty. I never use. Very dirty and very unused. And this also does have a lockout, so it can be used as a server tower to just run continuously and not be touched. And that way you can secure it by locking it. You can also lock the side panel here, and I do still have the keys. I just don't know where they are. So we're going to open this while it is running. This is very dangerous. I don't recommend anybody doing this, but this is part of the show. And I have done this numerous times with this computer case, and it is safe to do this for me. Okay. So my whole case comes apart there, and here you can see the CPU is running pretty full speed there, and you can see the copper heat sinks pulling the heat off. I have my Seagate hard drive, my backup drives, crammed a bunch of cables up there with the CD drives. It doesn't look very nice. Obviously, this is a real messy situation and a real messy setup. This is not professional at all. You would never just jam your cables up here like this, so don't do that. I did this to save time and energy because they were just hanging around down here. Now, as you'll notice that my graphic card says it is a GTX Ti 560, and this is actually incorrectly marked. I thought I had purchased a Ti, and it was not a Ti. It's actually just a regular GTX 560, and it barely does that. So it was straight from the manufacturer. They were the ones that mismarked it, ironically. But the graphic card is pretty cool. It kicks a lot of butt. And I have a nice Asus motherboard here and my sound card there at the bottom. There's your SATA connectors, which help connect the long-term memory. And I have a tunnel fan here right below my hard drive to help cool it. And another fan down here just to help cool the case completely. But this thing definitely supports everything I need it to do, even just with the 2 sticks of RAM and the 1 single core processor. This motherboard was made to be upgraded, and I never actually got around to it. And I kind of blame AMD because this is an AM3 Plus motherboard, which they don't make those anymore, technically speaking. I mean, they do, but not for new CPUs anyway. You gotta have an AM4 socket, and this one is not. So I'd have to upgrade my entire motherboard, my entire backbone, just to get a brand new brain. So a little disappointing, but could be worse. But this is probably one of the coolest setups I've ever done. And yes, the wiring is a total nightmare, and I'm so sorry about that, everyone. But I hope you enjoy this little inside peek of my computer, how it works, what it looks like, how it's doing its thing. And hopefully this helps illustrate a little more as to how our technology works and really what's going on there. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great one.